All right, it is 6:06 and I'm going to call the Salary Commission meeting to order. We are going to go on then to roll call. Do I do that or do you do that, Anya? Okay, great.
Commissioner Hort,
Present.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Present.
Commissioner Bain,
Present.
Commissioner Huber,
Present.
Commissioner Hampton.
Can I motion to excuse Commissioner Hampton?
Second.
Right. All in favor? To excuse Commissioner Hampton?
Aye.
That right?
That sounds right. I think you're doing a fantastic job. This is why I nominated you. You're doing great.
All righty, so I guess then we can jump into our discussion. Anya, or Mrs. Warrington provided us with the council salary information for the last couple of years. I don't know if you guys all got a chance to look at that. But other than that, we didn't request any new information besides what we received the previous meeting. So I just kind of want to open it. Does anybody have any thoughts on the council salary information? I do feel like it's a little bit hard to compare just because we changed the format last year.
Yeah, we have it's a new number, but it still feels like it's in line with everything else that I was looking at with all the other cities. At 937, I was just trying to figure out this cut height math. You could probably do it in your head, but I was okay.
I did kind of do like a percentage of what it seemed like. I loaded it is what I would call it. Like I basically added in the 4 meetings, like that amount, and added it to the monthly salary and then tried to see like, okay, how much did it change year over year?
Yeah. So
And it's kind of all over the place, to be quite honest. It wasn't really a trend.
yeah, you go like 8%.
Then it's like 1, 1, 3,
3.
and 2.5. So I did kind of find that interesting, but I also then did look at the information we had, you know, just where like everybody else is at, and it kind of the information we received last meeting, the mayor council data. And it also kind of seemed, to be honest to me, that the council increases were also a little all over the place. It wasn't as kind of streamlined, it seemed, as the mayor. So, I mean, that makes it a little bit hard to say, oh, we're right in line. We follow this trend.
Well, all fairness, last year, I think is when we kind of brought it
Two trends.
to the line to where we can maybe move forward in a more consistent basis with everyone else. Because we'll have, because no one else was using that per meeting bonus, stipend, whatever you want to call it. We
Yeah.
kind of,
We were the
Yeah,
only
so-
ones.
we wanted to simplify it for everyone. So now I think we can, going forward, it will be easier to keep it in line.
Yeah.
But you said everybody else is all over the place too, so I
Yeah.
mean, we have to be all over the place.
I guess what it was that I was noticing, was, you know, there were some places who the mayor increased, but the council stayed the same, or that the council president was compensated more than the rest, or it was, then there was, I think, also one where, it was based on how long they had been serving. Does that sound right, Anya? That there was
Yes, that's Mount Vernon.
Mount Vernon. So I don't know, do Commissioner Hort or Bain, do you guys have any thoughts on it kind of being a little bit more all over the place?
I think with the mayor's salary, it definitely was all over the place because you have to remember we were going from a part-time to a full-time. So we were trying to make that, so that was my first year on the commission. when the position went from part-time to full-time. So then there was a lot of questions regarding, can we see the job description? Can we see the requirements? Can we see, what the responsibilities have increased based on what this position was previously doing and what going full-time really meant? So I could see why there wasn't any sort of pattern with the mayor in that role. The city council, a lot of it, if I remember correctly, a lot of it was that there were questions on whether it should be per meeting stipend like there were times when they thought about taking it away. But I think what it came down to is that it just didn't make any sense anymore. So I think we're starting a new norm and we're starting a new pattern, both with the mayor's salary and the city council salary. I think what we do here this year is going to start that trend moving forward, because I really don't think that there was a trend in the past.
Accurate.
Commissioner Horde, do you have anything to add with that?
I don't have anything to add. I'm just super glad we took away the stipend last year for those meetings and made it a level playing field compared to the other cities around us. So I think that was a good call. And I think what Dixie said about us kind of starting the trend now is good insight. So nothing else to add.
Did we have the mayor's salary over the last year, or was it just city council that you gave us?
The city council.
Making sure. Missing something.
I guess I did want to make sure when we are looking at city council, I mean, I think we did a lot of work last year to ensure that, we did take that stipend away, make it a little bit more streamlined. I'm not sure if I feel like these other approaches necessarily are streamlined, but I do want to make sure we consider it. Like, does anybody have a feeling whether having something that the council president gets compensated more, or that based on the number of terms that you're serving, you get more? Do you guys feel like that's something that would be like something to consider for Lake Stevens?
In my opinion, I don't think so. I think that anyone that is on city council is, number one, they're a volunteer. Number two, they're voted in. I don't think that really anyone has any higher standings than another council member, even if they've been there for more terms. I think that we really need to focus on keeping the city council playing field even across the board between all of our council members. I think that that's going to allow us to make what we're trying to do, right? So make, our advancements into the next couple years very solid and unified.
Yeah, I don't think that I would be open to that this year for city council. I think where that really played a difference in Mount Vernon was for the mayor. And I think it's something to think about for the mayor. Because if you're getting voted back in, it definitely means you're doing well. Like it's an indication of your performance. So, I don't know. It's something to think about, but I don't have good thoughts around it right now in this meeting.
Yeah.
Do you have thoughts around it, Commissioner Schmidt?
I think that it would be kind of undoing some of the work in streamlining the process from last year to say, hey, let's stagger everything. I can see the point where, you're an elected official. If you continue to be on there, you would assume like the longer you're on there, like the more, right, change you're going to help create, and that people are voting you in because they agree, like your constituents agree with that change. So I can kind of see how that would come about, but I do agree with Commissioner Bain's point that it should be a level playing field. I mean, it shouldn't be that somebody's gonna keep running because they're gonna get more money every time if they don't want to be there. It's a volunteer position and it's not a full-time salary, right? So I think I would be opposed to it. I just wanted to make sure like that we considered all of it when we see this data of similar locations.
Yeah, I go back and forth and I went back and forth with my head like 3 or 4 times, just thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, but now I like I'm all for the level playing field. Politicians shouldn't be getting rich doing what they're doing. If this is a stepping stone to bigger and better things, God bless them, let them go. The money shouldn't be the attraction. It should be the community service should be the attraction for a city of Lake Stevens size. We're not a metropolitan, some metropolis that needs to, this isn't where you go get rich. That would be somewhere else, unfortunately. This is a nice salary. It's a nice, comfortable salary. And I think that's the way I would look at it. I get the performance bonuses or whatever you want to call them, or little bumps there, but not like Stevens. I don't think so. At this point, unless somebody brought a good argument forward, I would agree with the.
I feel like there's no way for us to evaluate performance on our city council members other than the length of time. And most of our city council members have other jobs. This is really truly a volunteer position for them. They volunteered to run for this seat, and they volunteered knowing that it is community service based and it is based on service. So I don't feel that there's any way for us to really truly evaluate any sort of performance other than them just being on the council. So I don't see how we would be able to do that. I don't see that having someone in for multiple terms gives them an advantage on someone newly coming in. So my recommendation would be that we don't look at something like that for our city council members.
Unless they want to monetize or the salary commission.
Right? Like,
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Consider.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. All right.
All right, it sounds like we're all in agreement with that, but I do think it was good that we just at least discussed it and got, kind of the logic out behind it. Now, I guess, right, when we were looking at what the COLA is expected to be, at about 4%, I guess my thought does come to, is that something that we hope to, or that we're leaning towards council would be getting that 4% as well? Or does anybody have any different thoughts with that?
I mean,
Go ahead.
sorry.
I defer to the webcam.
So I would think that the 4.5 or 4% COLA would also, we would look at for the city council as well. I don't see why their COLA would be different. I don't see where it makes sense that it would be different, but that's just my thought process. If the entire city of Lake Stevens employees are getting the same, COLA, then why would we change for our city council members who are part-timers? Do you know what I mean? So.
That's a good question. I hadn't even thought of you said part-timers. Do we have part-time employees or Commissioner Worthington, not Commissioner Worthington, I don't know. Madam Worthington. I'll call you something here. Eventually I'll be right. Do we have part-time employees, and are they getting the COLA as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And yes.
So that would be very consistent, and it would be a good trend to start, because it would streamline the processes as we go forward. I think anytime we can streamline anything, I believe everybody's going to be happier on the backside.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Ms. Worthington's position should get like an 8% bump, but we can't single her out.
I agree.
Alrighty,
So I would agree with that as well. I kind of was just playing with numbers at like $32 a month, $37 a month roughly at 4%. So
Mhm.
they buy themselves a dinner after a meeting. So maybe
Depends on where they
without
go.
drinks.
Yeah. All right, does anybody have, I guess, any other points that they would like to make on city council? I feel like sometimes it's like jump to city council and then we can move to the mayor and figure out what our thoughts on with that.
I do not. I think,
Yeah.
the city council is good.
Yeah,
And
and
stuff
when
like-
I look at it too, like the 937, we still do come in, from my perspective, on the lower end. So I don't feel like the 4% would be blowing us out of proportion with everybody else.
Mhm.
You know, our neighboring cities and our competitors. So I feel comfortable with that 4% there as well.
I do as well.
More-ish.
Okay,
Yeah, I calculate it to be 974.48 per month. So you just round that
yeah,
down or up.
gotcha.
Or-
Make it nice and even.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear that? It's about 974.48.
Yep.
So 975 rounding.
Yep.
Okay. So I think then jumping over to the mayor. Anybody have any thoughts they want to start with?
You know what my feeling was last year on the mayor's whole debacle, but no, I'm comfortable with just carrying this straight across and giving the mayor the same COLA raise. We're talking 3.03, 90% of 4.5 or whatever it is.
It's 4.05 technically.
Yeah,
Mhm.
But I
So
think
4.
for the, yeah, for
For
city
every-
council's rounded it to 4.
4,
okay.
yeah.
I'm comfortable with the mayor getting the 4% as well. I don't think we need to start talking 0.5%. I think we're getting personal there. Somebody's got a vendetta, but so I think we just leave it 4% across the board there for the council and the mayor. And solve a lot of this when we go home. And come back on December 2nd or whatever it is.
Commissioner Horde or Bain, do you guys have any thoughts with the mayor?
The biggest thing I took away from our robust conversations last year was that everybody works hand in hand, side by side. So keeping everything at 4%, I said at last meeting, I'm very comfortable with that. So I'm good.
I agree. Mhm.
I would also say that I am in agreement with that. Oh, yeah, go Commissioner Bain.
I do just have one little thing to bring up. So I know that we're talking a COLA increase. Is it our responsibility as well to look at performance increase on top of the cost of living? Or are we just gonna look at cost of living this year? Since he is an employee and not a volunteer with the city council, so my employees, I do performance reviews every year. They receive a percentage of a raise based on performance, and then they receive a COLA on top of that. So that's the only question I have. Well, I'm great with the 4% COLA, but are we also looking at a performance increase because of the performance this past year and the responsibilities that he had? And how does the growth of Lake Stevens factor into this coming year, and will his responsibilities become greater? Or whoever, if he stays in this role, great, whoever takes over this position, this mayor role, is that something that is gonna increase the responsibilities of this position with the growth that we're having right now?
He ran unopposed this year. Right, so he was appointed or elected when this position went full-time, I don't recall.
Well, he was elected as part-time and then
Okay.
he was made full.
And then it rolled into,
And now it hasn't even been a full-time mayor for 4 years, he's just coming up on that, right?
Yeah, it was 3.5. I think he was
Okay.
full-time pretty shortly after he was elected.
Okay, and so then we go, this will be he's running unopposed, so I
Yeah.
assume he's gonna win. But
Write-ins could be
write-in,
wild, yeah.
So you know, I guess maybe next year we look at, is this something that if he gets elected again, he gets another 3% on that? I don't know. But again, how do we measure that performance? It's measured when he's elected. The people.
Right.
And I think that's where his performance review is gonna come. And the people will squawk if something's going bad, and we'll hear about that as well, and so.
Yeah,
I think
Go
it
for it.
would be worth asking, just to make sure to confirm, with Mrs. Warrington. Does the mayor in his compensation package currently receive any sort of performance-based bonus?
No.
Okay, I think that's
Salaries
important.
Determined by,
Okay,
whether you call it a COLA,
yeah.
market increase,
Full
or a COLA and
salary.
a performance increase,
Mhm,
that's the
all based on it.
purview of the commission.
Okay, so there is no
Anya?
set item.
has the job description for the position changed at all in the last 3 years since it went full-time?
No, we don't really maintain that as a job description. We really created that just for the salary commission.
I do recall looking at that last year. And it was. I mean, I think how I took it was open enough that it allowed growth within the position, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't like you need to be very specific, like be at 2 events this many times. It's like, it was open enough that like when it grows, your responsibilities are obviously gonna grow with it in that sense.
The scope was
Okay.
pretty,
Mhm,
Okay.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
yeah,
Mhm. No, I'm totally fine with the 4% COLA. I just didn't know how the performance, if there was a performance increase that was determined by us, or if we were only determining a COLA increase.
yeah. So how I take the answer is, I mean, we are determining it all. So whether that is only COLA or we do it on top, and I guess my perspective on it would be, I don't think it would be on us to rate his performance. And say, okay, on top of the COLA, or what we would. I don't know.
Yeah, it'd be difficult. I think it'd be very difficult for us to rate performance, because we're just 4 individuals who live in the city that we could have 4 very differing views, or we could all have,
And
it's just, yeah. don't
And
see
I
it.
do
Mhm,
agree
mhm.
though that when you are an elected official, your performance rating are your constituents. Like you will hear about it when people are upset, you will hear about it when you're doing great, and you will be, reelected. Or how passionate do people feel that they need to run against you because they don't like what you're doing. That would be, to me, that would be the performance aspect of being elected mayor.
He has the privilege to serve us.
Mhm.
That's what he had. That's his bonus.
Yeah.
so if I could share some perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kind of putting the Mount Vernon scenario into play is the city, our city, how we structure pay is we have a range for each position. So there's a low end of the range and a high end of the range,
Okay,
and there's 7 steps within the range.
okay.
In between
Okay.
each range, there's different positions in each range. There's 2.5% in between each range
Mhm.
and 4% in between each step. And as an employee is hired, say they're hired at the first step, the low end of the range, because they have no or little experience.
Mhm.
The next year on their anniversary date, they receive that 4% increase plus whatever COLA they would get at that January mark though.
Okay.
So
That's interesting.
it's not, I mean, the performance metric based increase is very common as well. Some people do that. Even some cities do that. It's a little less common in government.
Yeah.
But we instead have this structured longevity sort of step, which is interesting because that's kind of what Mount Vernon has done, is
For
like
their
a
mayor.
longevity
Mhm.
kind of step.
Yeah,
So I just
but
was
you're
kind of
not-
putting that
Together.
together.
Yeah, no, it's very, no, it's super interesting, but we go back to the point that he's elected
Right,
and you're hired.
right.
And so
right.
that's totally different.
Mhm.
And feels like the 4% keeps us in that middle of the pack.
Mhm.
120 grand a year is a healthy salary. I know he works 14 hours a day probably. Probably underestimating that, but, yeah. it's a
What's
sort of
the
position.
amount if we add the 4%? Do you have?
I came up with $10,285.60 per month.
Okay.
And that's 123,427. And
123,000 and what, sorry?
427
427
and 20 cents.
for the year. All right. Okay, I think that was an interesting point to bring up
Yeah.
though, and to make sure to, kind of confirm where we stand on it and what our scope was also as the salary commission. Mhm.
So I'm good with 4% across the board.
Mhm.
Yeah, that'll be a good topic. There's something, once we hasn't been any consistency. It doesn't feel like for the city council and the mayor position so new. I don't know if it's right for this, but, yeah, I'm good with the 4% for this year.
Mhm.
It might be bigger conversation next year.
Yeah,
Mhm.
as we get farther down the road, having these positions, having the consistency with them.
And being more comfortable in my role here.
All right.
Okay, so I'm hearing 4% for both city council and the mayor, and I heard a little wish to round potentially for city council. Do we want to round to 975 or 974?
I think
975.
9.5 sounds good
Okay.
to me.
Yeah.
And I see that.
And then for mayor, 10,286 for rounding.
I think so, yeah.
I did
that
count
sound-
crazy.
Yeah.
You've got all sorts of different. I don't round.
I know, do it
Okay, I just want to confirm what I'm planning in the public hearing.
Yes.
So I'm assuming then we don't need another meeting. If we have some consensus. And we'll
I'm
go to
good.
public hearing.
I feel like there's not additional, information that we haven't been able to discuss, so I feel comfortable skipping the next meeting. I do feel like I want to make sure we have a consensus on this. Obviously Commissioner, Hampton has been unable to be here the last 2 meetings. Do we feel like we need to give her another shot to show up? Do we think, at this point, we could fill her in at the public hearing? And that would suffice. I just want to make sure we're all okay with that.
She can catch up on the YouTube.
Yes. Luckily, we have Mrs. Warrington
I will-
recording.
And I will say, I mean, no offense to Commissioner Hampton, but even if she disagrees with the consensus, you still have, if
The
you're all
majority.
consenting, you still have the majority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't always have to vote the same way.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah.
And then also at the public hearing, like similar to last year,
That was my fault.
there was a filing of the public hearing and then we had discussion
Amended.
and amended the decision at the end of the day. So you also have that
Those options.
option as well.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't have consensus at the public hearing and you didn't feel comfortable voting or filing, you could extend and hold another public hearing down the road. That just means that
It
the
comes into
salaries aren't
effect
effective
later.
until later. And
Okay.
that's okay too. I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
Less than ideal, but okay.
Yeah. I just want to make sure, right, like she has been a part of this for a while and I think she brings a lot of experience. So I want to make sure that we can hear her and she has that opportunity to, weigh in if she can, so. But
Cool.
I think it's December 2nd.
I don't know. I do
I-
keep throwing that number
I
out.
was like, I'm hearing this a lot. I think
at
we
the end
had,
of October, end of November,
it's like, what?
end of November.
Yeah, it's 28th or 29th. or
It's
something.
Oh,
that,
27th is what I have. Is that what you're up to? Hopefully. Sawyer's Room, Council Chambers, 27th, November 27th.
What are you
That's
doing?
what I have.
You're trying to visit all the rooms.
Yeah.
yeah, we're doing a tour.
Where is? Sawyer?
Yes.
Oh, that's the other end of
That's-
the mill still, or
No,
no?
it's the same room we were in.
Oh, okay, okay.
So yes, I have November 27th for the public hearing date.
Okay, 6 o'clock, correct?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
We won't file, with the Herald until mid-November. So even if in the next week or two, someone gets cold feet and wants to call the meeting. Or,
We still have the 13th scheduled, right?
yeah, so,
We would
Right.
take that off, though.
yes.
Well,
Yeah.
Unless somebody got cold feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could leave it there just in case somebody gets.
Yeah, I
cold
can
feet.
cancel it like just the week of,
Okay.
and we can leave it on there just for now, and
I feel like it's always better to have have a spot in case somebody has anything they want to bring up.
In case Hubert changes.
so
his
if
mind.
anybody has anything, just contact me. So I can notify the group.
Okay. It's a motion. With that, I think if we can have a motion to adjourn, unless anybody else has something.
A motion to adjourn the salary commission meeting.
My second.
Right. I call that it's adjourned at 6:36.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
We don't have to vote on that one.
Aye.
I think so because I did it last time.